Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Jackman Radio. I'm your host, Eric Jackman. It is Monday, August 8th, 2022. At least I think it is. And very excited to have a special guest today. I did his podcast last year or maybe 2020. It was some time ago. But it's Mr. Mark Meincke. He's the host of Operation Tango Romeo, the trauma recovery podcast. Mark, thanks so much, man, for coming on Jackman Radio today.
Hey, brother, it's been too long. And actually, I think that was all the way back in 2019, because that's when you were on the Meincke Show podcast. I did about 65 episodes of that before I decided that I don't like juggling and I'm not very good at it. So I iced the Meincke Show podcast and put all my eggs in the Operation Tango Romeo basket.
Okay. So, God, was it that long ago?
Yeah, man.
Jeez, time, man. That was before Stupid 19. Before Stupid 19 became a thing.
To your credit, because we did that comedy episode that people did not realize was satire. So to your credit, people thought that your Donald Trump impersonation really was Donald Trump. Like they thought it was the real deal. They figured I got the president on the phone.
They heard the audio of it, and it was so believable that they actually believed that you had the Sultan on your show.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good compliment to you, I think, that people thought it really was him.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, thanks to your listeners. It's thing I've been doing professionally since 2015, but with the virus, that kind of put a halt on live performances and stuff for quite a while. And as you can see, my hair has gotten pretty long, and I have all this facial hair, so I haven't really done like a big Donald Trump outing in character since the holidays of last year, like December. I got hired for like a couple of holiday parties and birthday parties. So I've taken a little break from it, which is never a bad thing.
Did you ever do any skits with it?
Yeah. I've filmed a bunch of skits. One that you and your audience would probably enjoy in particular was Donald Trump on Ice, where Donald Trump builds his own hockey team and is out there on the ice skating and shooting at targets of Hillary Clinton into a hockey net.
Oh my God, you got to send that to me.
I'll send that to you. Yeah.
Throw it to me on the Instagram or something. I'll share it to the universe.
Yeah, I'll send that to you. But yeah, I rented out an ice rink here in New Hampshire for like 3 hours and rounded up, nice. a dozen of my buddies who play hockey. And I was able to, my dad was still around, and my dad was in it with his brother, who were both Newfies from Newfoundland, and they grew up playing hockey. So they played two of the Hanson brothers in the skit. They got the wigs and the glasses and
putting on the foil coach,
laced them up. So, it's probably the most fun skit I've done. And then I did one where Trump names his cabinet, where I rented a big kind of mansion type place here in New Hampshire with a big fireplace, and just had Trump talk about his cabinet and shit, which is pretty funny.
Even though it's not Slapshot isn't a Canadian movie, but there's a couple of Canadians in it. Even though it's not a Canadian movie, it's actually part of the test. The if you want to be a citizen, you got to pass some trivia of the movie Slapshot, or you're not allowed in.
Damn, really? I've only seen it maybe once. I've seen it a couple times, but I know Paul Newman's in it.
Well, I'm trying to get it at the border. Like if you can't answer some Slapshot trivia and some Strange Brew trivia, we don't want you.
We don't want you. We don't want you coming here. Okay, the Canadians, they want a nice wall to keep the Americans out. The joke is that Canada lives below a meth lab. You guys live above America's a meth lab, and Canada's above.
Yeah, they're in our basement.
Yeah, American meth lab.
Well, we're building a wall. I don't know if you knew that, but it's going to be a nice wall, just like Game of Thrones. We all saw that. We thought that's a pretty good idea. So we're going to build us an ice wall, because it never thaws out up here.
The ice wall was a hell of an idea, and we'll get Jon Snow to watch that wall, and he'll do a great job.
We got a couple of buddies out there with a garden hose right now, just building it.
Just getting it all pressed and ready to go.
Yeah.
So Mark, I know it's been a while since we chatted, and I did your show, but what are you up to? I know that you've written a couple of books, and you're the better known one is called Why Not Me? The Keys to Unlock Your Power and Release Your Potential. But day to day, what are you up to, and what kind of things are you working on? I know you told me you were in a movie, or you're filming stuff for a movie, and you've had some cool guests on your show. So what's going on in your world right now?
Well, because of the show and my network, that's how I get invited to things like, hey, want to be in a movie? It's because of the network from the show. So the show is sort of the center point, and then things just kind of branch out from there and creates different opportunities. Um, I've been putting all my eggs in the podcast basket. I'm in a financial position where I can do it full time. I retired back in December, so I'm just living off my retirement income. I don't make a dime from the show. If
Hmm.
I ever do make any money from it, it'll just be back to promoting and doing veteran outreach and that kind of thing. But yeah, so I'm doing this kind of full time. As you know, podcasting is a big job, and just doing all the prospecting to get the guests on and getting them booked. I'm a one man show, so
It's a
it,
grind.
uh,
It's a
it
grind.
it eats up the hours in a hell of a hurry. People are like, "What do you do with all your time?" I'm like, "I'm busier than I've ever been."
Right. Right. Yeah. No, it is, man. And obviously, I'm lucky. I have my twin brother Mike, and we have a lot of the same skills. And our network is obviously pretty much the same network, and all the people we know, whether it's in the film world, politics, um, military people, like sports, actors, authors. We all know a lot of the same people, but people don't realize the legwork, man, that goes into putting these together. And you have an idea about someone you might want to book, and you're like, well, how do I get in touch with that person? That could take some research to track down an assistant's email address, or a way of getting in touch with them. So when you're booking people for your show, so I mean, your show is essentially focused on helping veterans recover from trauma and from PTSD. Is that kind of the central idea of your show?
Pretty much, veterans, first responders, and their families. The families get left out of the conversation all too often. So the show started from a peer support group. As part of my healing journey, like way in the beginning, I was invited out to a peer support group, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. That sounds goofy. The guy was pretty persistent, so I said yes, and it changed my life, because it turns out that the injury of PTSD, which I prefer to call PTSI because it is an injury, it's not a disorder. Um, the biggest thing is the disconnection. So they might as well call it PTS disconnection, because you're disconnected from who you are, from who you used to be prior to the trauma, from community, because it's tougher for you to socialize with people, to get along with people, because you don't understand yourself, much less others, because everything just gets messed up with an operational stress injury. And it's a tough road to hoe, really tough road, which is why the suicide rate is so incredibly high among people suffering from it, from this neurological injury. So a properly run peer support group provides that sense of community and connection, where you learn like, oh, okay, uh, Dave and Marie and Bob and Lucy, they all have some really similar stories to mine. They get it. Oh, all right. So I am injured, because we'll fight it forever. People talk about people milking the system. It's like, well, there might be a couple, but the vast majority of people that are injured never reach out for help. And they live a life of multiple marriages that fall apart, alcoholism, drug abuse, homelessness. Um, until you understand what the hell is going on with you, it destroys lives. But when you're in a peer support group, which is how this show started, you start to realize, kind of like kids learning from sex education, from some
Hmm.
playboys that they found in the ditch, and they're talking among each other, themselves, giving each other advice. It's unfortunately a little bit like that, only a bit more advanced, because we do have science, like a good peer support group. There's good science, and we're sharing, hey, what's worked for you, because this is what's worked for me. Hey, maybe I'll try that. And so the show was an aggregate for resources, and also amplified peer support, because people would drive 2 or 3 hours just to get to our peer support group, which was 2 hours once every 2 weeks. So if somebody's going to do a 3-hour drive across the prairies to get or through the mountains, if they're coming from the other side, well, there's got to be some value here for them. Like, they're not doing it for nothing.
Right.
So why is this so important to them? And once I started to realize the power of peer support and creating community, I started this show. And then it kind of grew from there. Operation Tango Romeo is still that, but it's still born out of peer support, but it's also an aggregate for resources. So I talk to experts all around the world, everybody I can find from every modality of healing that I can find. And I figured 30, 40 episodes, I'll be done and it'll just sit there and be a resource. Nope. I don't even know where I'm at, 235 episodes or something like that.
Wow.
And I've barely scratched the surface. There's a ton of topics that I have not covered yet. So I just keep going at it. And it's like, well, what have we not talked about? Quite a bit. So there's a lot to know in 235 episodes. Doesn't cover it. It's a big world. It's a big world. And I'm an aggregate for all of that, so that you don't have to go through what I've gone through to try to find all these resources. I'm putting them all in one place. And just scroll through the show list and pick and choose.
Right. It's kind of a centralized clearinghouse for resources and connecting with experts and having conversations that I'm sure a lot of veterans, might feel like they're having in isolation or not even been able to have. So that's really powerful. So have you found, well, let me ask you, in Canada, I know Canada has nationalized healthcare. Is there a separate, like we have in America, VA system, like veterans hospitals for Canadians, or is it just all under the banner of a national healthcare system?
That's a really good question. No, we have a VA as well. We just throw a C at the end of it. So it's VAC instead of the VA. It's Veterans Affairs Canada, or VAC. And like your system, it's bogged down. There's a lot of problems with Veterans Affairs Canada. But if you can get through the paperwork, if you can get through the bureaucracy, if you can get through all the stonewalling, the resources are there. It's just getting to them. That is, the bureaucracy is unbelievable. Yeah. One of the unfortunate, and it almost makes it predatory, our public health systems. When you have an operational stress injury, a post-traumatic stress injury, one of the most common symptoms is that you're easily overwhelmed. Anxiety can overwhelm you easily, and that anxiety can get, forgive the word, triggered. But that anxiety can get engaged with just some simple paperwork, something that to a healthy mind is like, wow, it's just 10 pages. I just fill it out. No biggie. But to a mind that is injured, they look at that and they just can't. And it's really tough. My wife has struggled with this. She's like, what do you mean can't? You just do it. Can't. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. It might as well be a gorilla looking for a fight. I can't. And don't know why, just can't. And don't. So my taxes are wildly out of date. And something is very, very common in the veteran and first responder community. Paperwork is just overwhelming. Don't know why, just is. And so when you're asked to go through all this bureaucracy that even an administrator like my wife looks at it and goes, that's a lot. And then you actually dig into the forms and they ask questions that are bizarre and you don't know how to answer them. If a healthy professional administrator doesn't know how to go through these forms, how in the blink is somebody who's injured supposed to go through these forms when they're already easily overwhelmed? So most people don't, and they don't go into the system and they don't get the help that they need. So a stopgap for that is something called service officers. There's the American Legion, and in Canada we have a Royal Canadian Legion. Similar in England and the UK is the British Legion. And they have something called service officers, and they help you with the paperwork because of this barrier to entry. But without a service officer, I do not know how any of this would ever happen.
Yeah. So, an advocate, someone to help you navigate the bureaucracy and help you through the process, basically, is what that is.
Yeah. Somebody that knows what forms to fill out, how to fill them out, how to word them in such a way that you might actually get your claim approved. Because another part of the predatory part of the system is that it's deny, deny, deny. And my central position in the veteran community, I get all the stories. So I'm an aggregate for all the shit shows and all the good news stories as well. Like I get it all. And um, again and again and again, deny, 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 no, no, no. After 3, 4, 5 years of fighting, okay, we'll give you your claim. Why didn't you just do that 5 years ago? Why'd you make me fight for 5 years?
Right.
Because it's predatory. Most people give up.
Yeah, they get discouraged and just beaten down by the bureaucracy in the system. Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth on this. I have a lot of personal libertarian views. I'm not a member of the party. I call myself an independent with libertarian leanings. But, our healthcare system in America is a mess, too, and a nightmare. And I really got a front row seat to it for real when my father was dying of cancer. And I got slapped in the face by it. And dealt with it for real for the first time in my life. So I don't really have an answer of what exactly we could do. I'm not, married to either way, like totally free market or something with some nationalized healthcare. And I'm sure Canadians are just like Americans in that they have a lot of mixed views of a national healthcare system up there.
There's this a lot of myths in the States about what our healthcare system is up here. The truth is that we do have a multi-tier healthcare system, or at least 2-tier. There's all kinds of things that you can pay for and get and buck the public system, like a hip replacement. Because the States exists, we do medical vacationing all the time. My wife just did it last November. She flew down to Arizona to get a hip replacement because up here, they're like, nah, you're too young for a hip replacement. We don't feel like it. We'll wait till you're at least 60 before we do this for you. She's like, no, it hurts now.
I'm in pain.
My quality
now.
of life sucks now.
Yeah.
So we sold her house so that we could afford for her to get a hip replacement. We don't regret it, but that's what it took. But you can also do that. There's a place in Toronto, which is a 4-hour flight from where I am. And we can also pay for it up here. But the place we found was in Arizona, and hey, why not make a nice trip out of it? Arizona's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the kind of libertarian arguments that Gary Johnson made when I worked on his campaign was kind of having specialized centers for all the specialty medicine that humans need. So a hip replacement place where you could go that's free to run and be a freestanding enterprise and offer their services. And if it was truly a free market approach, in theory, those prices would be cheaper. They would fall, over time and over what was offered to people.
Well, it's funny that they call something like a hip replacement elective. It's not elective. Like when you can't walk, that's not elective.
I'm not electing to this.
That is, we're not talking about a boob job here because you're feeling a little bit flat chested and you're not feeling too good about it. We're talking about the ability to function, the ability to sleep, the ability to go to your job without being in constant pain. That's not elective.
Right.
And there has to be better access to that. I don't know what the solution is either. I think the States is messed up if you let a kid die of cancer because they can't afford the treatment and they can't afford the insurance. That's fucked up.
It is. It's humane and cruel. And my family, we did a GoFundMe. You're essentially online begging strangers for money to help during a health emergency. And it's sad. It was a really sad thing, and it really was the first time I really thought pretty deeply about the healthcare system and priorities. I make the point we prioritized expenditures of trillions of dollars since 9/11 to go all around the world and fight the war on terror and have war with seemingly a bottomless pit of money and funding. So why couldn't we just change our priorities around and kind of focus that more on things like healthcare and infrastructure and helping our veterans?
Yeah, for the U.S. politics, I'm a little bit conservative leaning, but except for when they're talking about public health, they're just lying or they're wrong. Like you can absolutely afford it.
Right. That's what I say that too, Mark. I say we can afford this.
Of course you can afford it. It's not going to bankrupt the country. That's just not true.
No.
And so I'll tell you another healthcare story that's a little like on the good side. So yeah, if they call it elective, yeah, it sucks up here. It freaking sucks hard. But if it's life threatening, it doesn't suck. It's bing bang boom, and you're looked after, and it doesn't cost you a dime. You know, so one example of this is when I was 29 years old. I had just finished college for the police and security. I thought I was going to be a cop. So like, hey, you're just a soldier for 5 years. Maybe being a cop it makes sense. Well, as I was doing the medical clearance through, they're like, dude, this heart murmur, like this is not good. I'm like, oh yeah, I know about that. I've had that when I was in the infantry in like a tier 3 unit, like we were in shape. And yeah, I was slower than the others and working harder, but I made it. They're like, you should be dead. There's no way you should have survived that.
Mm.
What are you talking about? Well, with this particular mitral valve prolapse, it is so severe that we're concerned about sudden death and heart disease. What? Yeah, you need heart surgery like 6 months ago. We got to get this done now, or like you might not be around. Like you could die any second here. I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound good. So at 29 years old, it cost me zero to have. There was only 10 doctors in the world that could do the particular surgery that would mean I don't need an artificial valve. One of them happened to be in Toronto, 4-hour flight from Calgary. Well, I was in Edmonton at the time. Doesn't matter. So Alberta Healthcare paid for me to fly to Toronto, paid for the hostel or whatever I had for a couple of days, paid for the flight because once you have your chest cracked open, I didn't have some tube run up my leg. My chest was cracked right open, and
Wow.
Open heart surgery cracked me open like a can of beans. So I can't carry luggage after that. So my cousin Sam, they was like, okay, you're the helper, and they flew Sam to Toronto as well to pick me up and get me home. This is all paid for.
Yeah.
It cost me nothing because if I didn't do it, I was going to die. Yeah. In the States, I'd still be paying for that 30 years later.
You would,
or 20 some odd years later, whatever.
Never pay it off. Yeah. So there's a disconnect between those things, and then there has to be a better way to do it and really put a value on human life. And I know this is probably pie in the sky, but eliminate the greed factor from it, and it becoming just such a racket and such a for-profit enterprise that what gets lost in the shuffle is helping humans live meaningful, dignified lives.
I think it's the all or nothing mentality that keeps screwing people up so they can't have a proper conversation on the topic. The free market capitalist crowd, which I believe in free market capitalism to a limit, though. Yeah. I think billionaires are bloody gross. Like, I think it's gross.
It is obscene.
And here's my argument for it. Watch Schindler's List, watch pretty much the last scene, and this is where my head's at. After this amazing guy had done so much and saved so many people, all he could think of is, oh my God, look at this ring in my hand. Fuck, I could have sold this and saved 3 more lives. God almighty, look at this car. I could have sold this. I probably could have saved 15 more lives. Look at all the things that I didn't do because I hung on to my stuff and put my stuff ahead of human lives. And he was beating himself up over it, right? That's where my head's at. How many lives could be saved if, I don't know what the cap should be, 500 million? Let's say it's 500 million. Like, so you can't afford a 200-foot yacht. And operate it 6 months a year.
Your third yacht.
Boo, frickin' who?
Right.
Like, I want to take away your guns because you don't need them. Oh, okay. How about we take away a 200-foot yacht? Because who in the F needs that? Nobody. You don't need the yacht. You don't need a 500 horsepower car, and you don't need 10 cars. Do we take that away too? You don't need them. You don't need a motorcycle that can go 300 kilometers an hour, 200 miles an hour in the States. Like, you don't need that. So let's take it away.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line?
Right. And what's hilarious about these billionaires who purport to be self-made, a lot of them, it's on government subsidies and government contracts. And, Elon Musk the dude's totally propped up by the U.S. federal government, Department of Defense. That's where
Well,
a lot of
you never
his.
know where and how palms are getting greased.
Well,
You know,
right. They, of course they are, but when you take away that aspect from a lot of these, billionaires who have there's a cottage industry of myth making around billionaires and cult of personality. I mean, certainly, you know, Tesla and Musk, they've done a lot of great things, but you can't, just sit there and say they just totally did it on their own without any help or backing.
well, however they did it, they did it. And I mean, you look at a guy like Elon Musk. He's actually giving something to humanity. He's probably the most important human being that's ever drawn breath. Some people will say that's Christ. I would argue. I would argue that. But as far as giving back and advancing humanity, that's Elon Musk. In all of human history, I can't come up with another name that would eclipse him. And yet he still has his haters. So, okay, dude's got his billions and he reinvests it all into doing stuff. He reinvested into R&D. I like that. I think he should probably also be reinvesting that into looking after his employees in a premier fashion, not be looking for the cheapest labor all the time. I don't know what his labor practices are, but whatever they are, I would hope that they would be the Rolls Royce of labor practices.
Yeah, can afford it.
Exactly. Like, that's where that should go. And because talking about free market capitalism, what if your company is the company that treats your employees 30% better than any other company than the distant second place? Well, why then everybody's going to be trying to avoid the other companies and go to Tesla or SpaceX or whichever one he's got cooking, right? And then that's free labor market capitalism. Right. Here's the best place there is to market. We believe in employee, like Home Depot, employee owned, or WestJet up here, the smaller of the two national airlines, employee ownership. Great. We got better buy-in, provides better customer service because everybody feels like they got a little bit of skin in the game, like they're part of the team because they have an ownership thing. It's like renters versus a homeowner. The homeowner tends to take care of the house a little bit better than the renter, and because they care. And if you're to do that, and that's just normal, then more and more employers keep doing that, because why would you work for anybody else?
Right. No, it doesn't make sense. So your military background and your experience, being a veteran of the military in Canada, what was your entry into the military and what branch were you in, and where did it take you?
Army. So when I first decided to join, I thought I wanted to be a medic. Well, I did want to be a medic. And because I'm not a great listener, as I was going through the process, what I could have sworn that they told me is like, okay, yeah, you're in, you competed for the position, and you leave February 8th, 1991. I'm like, well, that's great. So I had the going away party. I'm ready to go. I'm going to go be a medic and get to patch them up. And then when it starts getting close to the day, I'm like, geez, I haven't heard from these guys. This is before email, and I didn't have a fax machine. So I just went downtown Edmonton and knocked on the door and just saw the guy. Hey, remember me? Dude, when do I ship out? I haven't heard anything from you guys. And like, oh, no, you misunderstood. You competed for the position, but you didn't actually get it. I said, well, I'm going. So what else do you got? Because whatever that is, I'll take it. And of course, music to a recruiter's ears. Well, we got the infantry. Do you like camping? Well, yes, I do like camping. Well, the infantry's for you. Great, I'll take it. What is it? I have no idea. But I said yes. It was ready, fire, aim, and I went to infantry. So instead of patching people up, I was poking holes in people, or training to do that. The exact opposite of what I wanted.
Yeah, different end of that situation.
Yeah, well, it's the opposite of who I am as the core of myself as a human being. But I had to learn how to be that killer. Didn't like it. Didn't like transitioning into that, but did it, and I've been trying to swing back ever since. Trying to get, but you can't. Like the Marine Corps says, and everybody says about the Army, you can leave the Army, but the Army doesn't leave you, and it doesn't. So that part of me will always be there. And I guess it might be handy in an emergency situation. It has come in handy a
Yeah.
time or two in sticky situations.
Right.
But if I could get rid of it, I probably would. But I can't.
So was it just akin to being broken down and then turned into a machine by the state, by the military, and just trained to respond and have that just built into your psyche and your core?
The short answer, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Especially like in the infantry more than any other trade. Unless, of course, you go special forces, then it's even more so. Your brain gets rewired, and this is the problem with PTSD. Your brain, it's an actual neurological rewiring of your brain, so that the fight, flight, freeze part is what makes all the decisions for you. It's like thinking with your dick. It might be a good time, but it's going to lead you down a road
Boy,
that's going
the
to
end
cause you some problems, right?
the end result's not so pretty, Mark.
Not so good. Not so good when you're thinking with your dick.
No.
And that's what PTSD does. You're thinking with your fists. If you have a problem, kill it. If you have a problem, kill it. If you have a problem, kill it. And this is because of the neural pathways in your brain. 'Cause your brain is not fully formed until you're 25 years old. Pretty much nobody joins the army
No.
that late. The vast majority join at 18, 19, 20. And
you can still be molded quite a bit.
oh, huge. So you don't have a hope. Your neural pathways are getting restructured. And when you do things like ambush drills, ambush left, okay, and in an ambush, you're going to die. So the all you can do is damage control. So ambush left, okay, bad guys hosing us down from the left. The only thing you can do is max aggression, hose them back, charge, hope for the best. That's all you can do. So we do this in training again and again and again. Do on a patrol, ambush left, dump your make, charge, fix bayonets and kill whatever's there. Ambush right, do it again. Ambush front, do an Australian peel back. Ambush rear, do it again. And it's again and again and again pounded into you, creating these neural pathways that are always there. So it's great for an emergency situation because you don't think, you just react. And that's good. Because if you don't do that, you die. If you hesitate, you die. If you freeze, you die. If you run away, you die. And so do your friends. And that's not cool. So the only option is if you have a problem, kill it. Max aggression, charge at the problem.
Everything's a nail and you're a hammer.
Oh, yeah. So when most people, they do their 3 years and get out in the regular force. I was regular force. I did my 3. No, I did a little bit extra. I went in the middle of my second contract. I did about 5 years, then got out. I got out after a tour. And now welcome to the world. No transition training, no awareness that this neurological change has happened to you. You don't know that you react with have a problem, kill it. You don't know that you're an asshole. You don't know that you're aggressive. You don't know that you don't have a whole lot of impulse control. You don't know what PTSD even is or how to spot it if you had it. All you know is I don't fit. These frickin' civvies are weird, man. The hell's their problem? I don't get it. And people piss you off all the time because they don't act and talk in a way that you're familiar with and you don't like it. That's all you know. So a big number of people who get out get right back in the military within 6 months because you're like, it's weird out there. I don't like it. It's really weird. It's too weird. And I thought I wanted out of the army, but I'll just remuster, which is a Canadian term for changing trades. But I got to stay in here in this environment where I at least understand what the hell is going on. I don't have no idea what's going on in this weird civilian world, which is why when veterans so often, especially Army veterans, end up being police, fire, some sort of uniform service, or truck drivers. They become the truck drivers because they just get me away from people so I don't have to deal with the drama. So I don't have to have people tell me how I've hurt their feelings and pissed them off. I don't want to deal with it. Get me away from them. Or out in the bush as a guide or something like that. But you'll see people in careers that are the epitome of avoidance activities. The whole career is an
Yeah.
avoidance activity,
Yeah.
right? And that means that they have unresolved issues. They don't know any better. And that's a big part of where my show comes in, to talk to these people to say, look, here's what's going on. So they go, oh,
Starts clicking. Yeah.
click, click, click. And
Yeah.
okay, now what? Well, that's this episode, or that's that episode. This is. Or do you keep wrecking your camping trip? Why, yes, I did. Well, I happen to have an episode specifically for how to not wreck your camping trip. That
Right.
sounds useful. Here's some tools that work for me, because I hate wrecking the camping trip.
Yeah. Because probably every time you're going back to your service when you were out in the woods, and you're equating it to a military experience, a high pressure, high tension. You just can't relax on a camping trip.
Yeah.
Type deal.
It.
Yeah.
And it's unconscious. You don't know that that's what's happening.
Right. Well, you sounds like you just kick into gear when you're in that environment, and that's what you know. So,
well, it's a mission.
Right,
but your mind doesn't know that it's a mission, like not consciously.
Yeah.
But your mind is treating it like a mission without you being aware that that's what you're doing.
A recreational activity where you're supposed to just cut loose and let your balls hang out and have fun and relax.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's a military operation with Jesse Ventura now.
Well, that was a pretty good Jesse, by the way. That people are treating it like it's life or death, and it ain't. But there is a solution. So since we're talking about this, I have to give the solution.
Yeah.
Don't have to make you go to my show. So a solution that's worked for me and has worked for countless other people. Step one is what we just did, which realize, holy fuck, I'm on a mission. I did not realize that. That is a handy bit of knowledge. So I am unconsciously on a mission. Great. How do I deal with it? Change the mission. Have a different mission. And for me, that mission is harmony. I bought a motorcycle a few years ago, and it was in Winnipeg, so a couple hour flight from where I am. And I was going to have my youngest for his first airplane ride ever. Fly over there. My buddy picked up the bike for me, jump on the bike, and 2 or 3 day drive home, about 900 miles. And I knew I was going to fuck it up, because that's what I do. I get mad because I'm on a mission. I'm setting up the tent, and if my boy is not just switched on, I lose my damn mind. And I knew that about myself. So I decided I'm going to have a different mission. I'm not screwing this one up. I don't care if we get home in 2 days or 8 days. Don't care. Don't care about any of it. I don't care how fast the tent goes up. I don't care about any of it. I don't even care if my kid starts acting up and complaining. Don't care, because my mission is to not screw this one up. My mission is harmony. That was my overarching mission. So because I had a clear mission, I knew how to stay within mission parameters. So if I felt my ire coming up, I felt the anxiety coming up, getting frustrated. There it is. There's my frustration. I'm falling off mission. Okay, go for a walk. I'll be back in about 5 minutes, son. Where are you going? Taking a leak. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Just stay here. Go, calm down, get my head right, come back, continue. Without worrying about my son acting, who was like 11 at the time, acting in a very efficient manner. It says like, no, I'm here to have a good time with my kid, to provide good memories for my kid, not to create one more shitty memory because I couldn't keep my poop in a group. And it worked. We got through that whole trip. My anger only came up once, but I caught it in mid stride, stopped, and realized, fallen off mission, get back on mission. Mission is harmony. The mission is to have a good time. It does not matter how productive he is at getting this tent up. And we continued, and it was great. And now it's a cherished memory instead of one more time where I screwed up.
Right. It ended up being a great time, and you just kind of change the framing of it and the perspective of it. And
that's it.
That's important to do with a lot of things. I mean, I look at people who have serious road rage, and when I'm out on the road, I try to take that approach too, man. I'm going down the street to get some groceries or some water. This is not, This is not the super intense thing that needs to be dialed up to 10, you know? So you got to just remember everyone else is here on the road. They're going about their day. They're dealing with stuff in their lives just like I am. So I kind of keep that approach and have been really good. I don't think I don't get aggressive on the road and let that spill into that. But you know, everyone knows people. We have people in our family, friends who you sit next to them and you see that road rage come through, and it's like, dude, it's not worth getting in an accident over. It's not worth getting into an altercation with someone who might have a gun and getting killed over. You know, it's not life or death here. Just relax.
And it goes back to my camping scenario. You have to understand what's happening, like what is actually going on internally. What's the process that's okay? Like, why are you getting so damn mad?
Right.
And the answer to that is that people take it personally. If you get cut off or whatever, they feel like you did that to me. No, they just did it.
Yeah.
They didn't do it to you. They don't know who you are. It didn't happen to you.
Exactly.
Like it happened around you.
Yeah.
But not because of you. It is not personal.
It's not a personal slight.
An idiot's got to be an idiot. And
That's it.
they were being an idiot.
That's
it.
It
has nothing to do with you. It's
Don't
not
let
a
it ruin
personal
your
insult.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, don't let it ruin your day.
Realizing it's not a personal insult. That's the trick.
Yeah. So you said you deployed. You've told me before you deployed. Was it over to Yugoslavia or Bosnia? It was one of in Europe, right?
Yep, you got it. So the former Yugoslavia was broken down to a few different factions, and when I was on the coast, on the left coast, so I was in Croatia. Everybody always says Bosnia. I think it was they can't pronounce Croatia, but I never set foot in Bosnia. I was pretty close to the border a couple of times, but I covered all of Croatia, like every nook and cranny. And Croatia was the hot spot at the time. It's a spot of genocide. The Canadian government didn't like that term because then, maybe the public would want us to actually do something about it. And the UN didn't like that term, even though that's exactly what it was. So they called it ethnic cleansing. Drove me bonkers. That's a pretty gross thing to use a euphemism to diminish what this actually is. It is a straight up genocide, but that conjures up ideas of Hitler and whatnot. Well, that's what it was. Like entire families getting slaughtered, entire villages getting slaughtered over the Civil War. Like not okay. When you're shooting kids and lighting them on fire, that's genocide, and that's what happened. That is what happened, and that is what it was. So I had one of the crappiest tours imaginable. I was a UN peacekeeper. People don't understand that the United Nations does not have their own troops. They do not. What it is there's every member of the United Nations, of which, of course, the U.S. is a member, Canada is a member. The UN will put out a request, say, hey, the former Yugoslavia here has requested peacekeepers. So we're asking all of our UN members to provide some of their soldiers, and then we'll throw some blue hats on them and call them peacekeepers. And Canada put up their hand and said, sure, we'll do that. And so did 20 other countries. The States did not. They were not there. And not till later, but there was no peacekeeping role for the United States. But we were there, Norway, England, Nigeria, which was really weird. But Australians were there. There was us plus 20 other countries in total. And the job basically was to stand between two warring factions who really wanted to kill each other and say, no, you don't. Here's the demilitarized zone. If you're in this zone and you got guns, we're going to take your guns from you. Well, try that.
Try just asking. Yeah.
Yeah. Try taking guns from people who are terrified for their lives because it's a war. And everybody knows somebody that's been slaughtered. So of course they want to have their guns. And we're in the middle going, no guns for you, and taking them away. That was the job. And that's what we did. Not a good time. And so some of the people loved us, some of the people hated us, and everything in between. But that was the job. And it takes a soldier to take guns away. So if that ever becomes the thing in the States, just so you know, it's not the cops that'll be coming to your door because they can't.
Right. It's going to be military, federal troops.
It has to be.
Military. Yeah. So how long
and it has to be a platoon strength, which is about 30 people with heavy weapons showing up at your doorstep, so that you just go, oh, all right, I'm not going to fight.
So is that what,
I give
so how long were you in Croatia for?
6 months. It's
6 months.
typical tour. Yeah.
And I mean, is that what it looked like? Like, were you guys handed down lists of people, like, we need to keep an eye on these people and we may even have to go to their homes? Or was it simply you were reactionary to possible skirmishes that could happen? I mean, what was like the organizing around that?
Yeah, all of the above. Basically, the easier way to look at it is we had a border, and so there's a circle on the map, and magically, this is the DMZ. This is the demilitarized zone. So we would enforce that border. So we see any kind of buildup for war, any kind of equipment, we just say nope, no tanks, no artillery, no rifles, nothing. Not
No
even
camps.
communication lines in the fighting trenches, nothing. And
Jeez.
there was a couple of times where we would go, okay, we're not going to fill in that trench because it's an irrigation ditch. No, it's a fighting trench.
Yeah.
No, it's an irrigation ditch. But it's tough because you can't blame people for, you're just looking across the minefield and there's a bunch of people with guns outside of the DMV that want to kill you. So of course you want to be armed.
Yeah.
So it was just a crappy kind of deal. But we enforced the DMZ, which allowed kids to go to school. It allowed where we were, the fighting wasn't. So at least in our little bubble that we created,
you were deterrent.
People weren't dying because
Yeah.
we didn't allow it. That's while I was there anyway. And that's while the Canadians were there. We're kind of world famous troops. And the other ones that are on our level, the Brits, the Norwegians, but not a lot. The French were pretty good, actually. But most did not have our ability level. They just don't have it. The average Canadian troop is, I don't know, probably Marine Corps level. As far as training and whatnot, it's a different culture. It's not the hoo-wah kind of culture. We're not even high and tight anymore. But as far as level of training, it's kind of similar, only we're way more cross-training. We're kind of a light special forces level because we have to be.
Yeah.
Like doing an American comparison.
Now, so what you were in, was it called a unit or a platoon or?
Well, so my regiment
Regiment
is the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. That's our regiment. And there are 3 regular force infantry regiments in the country. The Patricias, that was mine, which was a privately stood up army from World War I that Canada kind of bought, which is kind of cool. So that was my regiment, and our regiment has 3 battalions, plus an attached reserve battalion. But we have 3 battalions, a battalion with support staff, roughly 2,000, although they've been shrinking a lot over the last decade. So that would be 6,000, and that's not even fighting troops. We have less than, in this country, regular force infantry fighting troops. Oh God, 6,003, like 2,500. That's all we got in the whole damn country. In the second largest country in the world, we have probably 2,500 infantry soldiers, which is why we have to have a pretty high level of training. Where everybody can do a little of something and a lot of some other things.
Quality over quantity.
We don't have a choice.
Yeah,
we're too tiny.
Now, when you were there in Croatia, was this men only or a women part of this too?
All the above. It was man heavy. I was in the FOBs. So a FOB is a forward operating base. And everywhere I was either in the FOB or outside the wire of the FOB, doing sticky patrols and whatnot. So outside the wire, not a lot of women, like very, very few, because it was an infantry thing. It was a combat arms thing. So the only women we had a mechanic, a medic, a couple of the cooks, maybe, not a lot, because, and there would be a little bit more now, but not a lot more, because not a lot of women want to join the infantry. Um,
Yeah.
not a lot of men want to join the infantry either,
Yeah.
but
Humans, period.
yeah, humans, period. But it's a tough go. There's more women in the infantry now than there's ever
Now
been.
there is. Yeah.
Yeah, super rare when I was in.
Yeah. And is it like just a regular 8-hour day, or is it just a certain amount of shifts that you do, 12 hours, or is it whenever you're done today, you're done?
All of the above. When we first got there, we had to put up the sandbag hotels. So we were living in a bombed out village in Kirin Slana was the name of the place. It's changed the name. I've gone on Google Earth. It's called Kirin Gornier now, in the Krinsko Mora, this beautiful inlet of body of water off the Adriatic. Freaking gorgeous, like beautiful place to vacation. Less so when I was there.
Yeah. It wasn't exactly Airbnb when you were there.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was a bombed out village. About 80% plus of the village was rubble. What was left standing, the engineers came, cleared it, made sure all the booby traps and unexploded bombs were all gone. And we're like, okay, this looks cozy. I guess we'll call it home. And then we would put sandbags 2 or 3 levels deep around everything. We'd create bunkers, but also like all of our the kitchen house, all of it. We would put sandbags all over the place, and as many on our internal walls as we thought the structure could handle. So sandbag pandemonium. It was just everywhere, and that's what we did. And actually, our platoon, I swear, filled all the sandbags for the entire battalion. We were doing at least 1,000 a day. It was just sandbag hell. And that's where we lived, because that was the only way we could keep ourselves straight. Because other tours, we didn't have any mortar attacks coming in, but lots of other rotations did. So it was always a threat. I knew a few guys that were in the middle of mortar attacks from that area. So that was when we were doing that. To answer your question, it was 36-hour days. So 36 hours of work straight, about 4 hours sleep, get back to it. 4 hours sleep, get back to it. And then you get 3 days off a month, but not the first month. It would sort of kick in the second month. Then you get 3 days off that were full days off. Like get on the bus, go to the leave center, go wild for 3 days, get back on the bus, and survive the hangover. Jeez. So it was all or nothing.
And when you're digging out and in the sandbags, are you just eating like MRE stuff? Obviously, you're not eating great food.
Not inside the wire. We were eating American MREs, Canadian IMPs, which is the same thing, only slightly better. The French meals were fantastic. I tell you, the French know how to eat. Jesus Christ.
Right.
Even their rations were fantastic. And the Germans, it was like some form of torture. We'd be like, oh no, the German rations. And the rule of thumb, the longer the name, like Zaglerfigen, Blagen, Bergen, Fergen, Bergen, the longer the name, the worse it tasted. It's just horrible shit.
Is it just dig a hole when you go to shit and piss, or is there?
Well, you get to
like
poop
porta
about
potties
once a month if you're on the German rations, like, and it makes a distinct clunking sound as it hits the granite.
Oh man! So, the work that you do with veterans, obviously in your network, you know a lot of veterans, and I assume from many different generations in Canada. So do you have people who, I know that the number is shrinking sadly, just simply because of how long ago it was, but like World War II era veterans that you've worked with and been in touch with, or how far back does that go? And like, what do those differences look like for veterans who are willing to kind of be open about their experiences and talk about it and address some of the challenges that they have from their service?
Well, you've just skillfully exposed a soft spot in my show. I haven't had any Korea vets, or I've invited a couple, but I haven't had any Korea vets or World War II vets on the show. And I'm pretty sure there's no World War I vets alive.
No.
But there's quite a few still kicking. I just got to get some of them on the show. But experiences that I've had with people of that vintage, when you have PTSD, you cannot be aware of it for 50 years. I was 23 years before I was diagnosed. I have witnessed people from the Korean War show, and some from because most Americans don't know, but a hell of a lot of Canadians fought in Vietnam.
I was going to ask you that.
There's about 40,000 that I know of.
Okay.
that said, "Hey, they're fighting down there," and the Americans said, "Sure, go on down. We'll accept foreign troops, kind of like the French Foreign Legion."
Yeah, I
But
didn't know that.
from us, they did. So piles of Canadians went down and served land, air, and sea, and probably the Marine Corps. Um, Served, threw on an American flag, and went and fought. And of course, quite a few died. So 40,000 Canadians went south to do that. And our population was probably 21 million or something at the time. So it was a big number that just voluntarily went, "Hey, it looks like you guys need a hand, so we'll come on down and we'll give you a hand." Of course, they have no recognition for their service.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I honestly was going to say, did Canadians fight in Vietnam? This is really, believe it or not, the first I've ever even kind of thought about this or would even think
and yet,
about it.
and I've met some people that did it, but we did it with an American flag on our shoulder.
Wow. Yeah, I would be really interested to hear some of their stories and experiences. I mean, obviously it was awful and terrible, but so are those guys kind of willing to talk about their experiences, or are they kind of more
Well,
closed
there's
off? Or
some the point of my almost a sidebar there was that Vietnam and Korea veterans have showed up at Veterans Affairs. It's called the OSI clinic, Operation Stress Injury Clinic, and they've shown up all these years later, going, "Oh man, I need help."
yeah,
So
yeah,
here they are in their 70s and 80s, going, "Oh, this isn't good," and it can take that long.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I know it's got to be a very difficult thing to talk about, and probably generation wise, you look back to those guys that came back from World War II and Korea. A lot of them just didn't want to speak about anything. They didn't want to talk about anything they saw or took part in and were ordered to do and was part of their job over there. So, do you feel like over time, veterans and people with PTS are more open to talk about it, knowing that there's more resources available?
There's been sort of a renaissance over the last 5 years. And I'm not going to take any credit for being part of that renaissance. I think my timing was just good, but because my show is about 3 years old, but over the last 5 years, the conversation's opened right up, and it's come a long way. Because back in the Vietnam or Korea or World War II days, PTSD was called shell shock, lack of moral fiber, a warrior's heart, all kinds of things. But basically, they called you a coward.
Hmm.
But it's a neurological injury, which is why most people kept their mouth shut, said, "I don't got a problem, I'm fine," and they crawled into a bottle and stayed there.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
because that was the thing that you did, and because somehow crawling into a bottle totally acceptable. Everything else not acceptable. Well, if the bottle's the option, and I'm not going to get chastised, okay, guess I'm going to be a hardcore drinker, and that's what people did. But it's so recent, just over the last 5 years, that people are more and more, even while they're still in service, they're feeling more and more comfortable to put their hand up. But sad but true, it is still the prevailing thought in most first responders, police, fire, all the EMS and soldiers, that they better not put their hand up if they want to have a career. They put their hand up, the career's over. Whether that's actually true in their particular unit or not isn't the point. The point is that's the perception. So people don't put their hands up because they value their careers. So they just suffer in silence and go, "I'm good. I got this. I'm good. I'm good. Good."
Yeah.
But they're not good, and they suffer and they die.
Yeah. Well, it's invaluable work that you do, and you should be commended, Mark, for it. I think it's awesome, man. It's a great thing, and you're a skilled presenter and podcaster. You got the voice. You're good at networking. It's awesome, man. So, are you still in touch with a lot of the people you served with in Croatia? Do you still see them, or what's that like?
Here and there. It's only through a lot of healing that I'm able to really interact with them without being wrecked for like a week, because it brings me back, especially a couple of
Of
guys
course.
that, um, oh, fuck. That doesn't happen very often. Pardon me. There's a handful of very special people that I just love them to bits. And we were right in it together, for all of it. And when I'd get together with them, it'd be so wonderful to see them, but they avoid me for the same reason I avoid them, because
Yeah.
it brings us back and it makes it real, stuff that we've blocked out, and it makes it real. So, a nice afternoon or even a full day of golfing with each other, and then we suffer for days after sometimes, especially if some of the old stories would pop out. Stories, my wife has heard the term unspeakable, because there's some stories I can't tell. I not even on my show. I just can't do it, because it's truly unspeakable, but completely true. But every now and then I get together with one of the guys that were there, and they tell one of those stories. I go, oh, fuck.
Heavy
Don't
stuff.
you know what unspeakable means?
Right.
And we're not supposed to talk about that.
Yeah.
But then I have to deal with that over the next coming days and remember that was real. That is really how horrible things can be.
And that's, and that's exactly it. It is real. And I mean, my experiences leading up to the Iraq War in my high school, recruitment was very intense. We had them in our lunch rooms, and it was pretty aggressive. And, a lot of my peers signed up for the military, and, people were excited about it, were cheering about it, and this is great. And then after they go and they experience war and come back, there really isn't the fanfare and the, every a couple times a year we go, thank you, here's parades, this and that, and then it's just the rest of the year. And the veteran he's it's with him every day. And that's one of the things I think about a lot, deeply, about some of my peers who went to Iraq as 18, 19, 20-year-old men, and had a rough time. And it's a tough thing. So I appreciate your willingness to talk about it and come on here and be interviewed. It's been great talking to you, Mark.
Well, brother, thanks so much for having me on and give me just another audience to say, hey, Operation Tango Romeo, Trauma Recovery Podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families.
Absolutely.
The more people that hear it, even if it's just one or two, it saves lives. I get private messages all the time saying, yeah, we're alive because of this. Thank you. And all I'm doing is opening the door.
Right.
I'm out there doing the digging, and then whatever I dig up, I bring to the show and go, here you go.
Right, here it is. So where can people listen to the show, and how can they support your show?
Like yourself, the major top 8 podcast platforms, Spotify. Apple's probably the biggest. I think most people go to Apple, like 40% or something like that. Spotify is in second place. Google Podcasts after that. Streaker, I don't know. I get lost after that. But my primary upload point is Anchor.fm. So that's where I load everything up, and then it gets to Spotify pretty quickly. I think Spotify is first on the list, and then it dribbles down from there. But Spotify, Anchor, Google, whatever floats your boat and blows your hair back.
Well, guys, check out his show. He's doing amazing work. It's righteous, and I'm proud to know a guy like you, Mark, and I appreciate you coming on. And don't let me butcher your last name. Meincke.
Second one. Meincke, you got her.
Yeah, I thought it. Okay, Mark.
Nailed it.
Mark Meincke, everybody. And if I can get up to Canada one of these days, Mark, I really I want to get up there. I know you're the opposite of Newfoundland, where my dad was from. And I want to get up there to scatter his ashes in St. John's Bay, where he was born all those years ago in 1955. He never made it back. He left Canada in 55 and moved to Ventura, California as a 10-year-old, and then lived in Ventura, California till 68, and then moved to inner city Boston. And he never got a chance to go back to Newfoundland. So my brother and I, it's kind of a goal we have. We'd like to get his ashes up there and just scatter them out in the bay.
Well, Newfoundland's a beautiful place with beautiful people. But if you want to meet a whole whack load of Newfies, you just go up to Fort McMurray, about 9 hours north of where I'm sitting. And
really?
They're jam-packed full of Newfies in Fort McMurray.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it is, actually. They're a good salty bunch.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, Mark, thanks, man. Thanks for joining me. And everybody watching, check out Mark's show. It's essential. He does great work. And appreciate you coming on. And everybody, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, Jackman Radio, what the hell are you doing? Hit that subscribe button.
Smash it.
Smash it. I'm on Twitter at Jackman Radio. And just like Mark said, you can stream my podcast on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Podbean is where we host it. And we appreciate your support. And if you do want to support this channel, go to patreon.com/Jackman Radio, become a monthly patron, or send me a tip on Venmo. My ID on there is Senator Jackman 86. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll see you next time.